Hi everyone. Pumpkin scones is the recipe for today, and often at Thanksgiving times we really focus on pumpkins because they're so versatile. And today we've made this beautiful pumpkin scones, and let me tell you, they're fluffy, they're light. I can sort of take or leave a normal scone, but these are so delicious. You're gonna love them. All right, let's get cooking.
Okay, so we'll do our 5 safety tips. As always, wash your hands, pop your apron on. Keep your hands away from your mouth. We're going to do some rubbing in today. Rubbing is when you rub the butter into the flour mixture. So there'll be, we are going to cook the recipe, but still we always keep our hands out of our mouth. Third thing, we cough and sneeze into our elbow, turning away. Fourth thing, we speak nicely about food. And fifth thing, we keep our utensils down. So as always, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself or pop something in the chat if I can see it. Great. Okay, now let me grab my glasses and we'll read. What we need is some self-raising flour. I've got my self-raising flour here. We're going to need a little bit of sugar, not a lot. I haven't got caster sugar because I buy ridiculous amounts, and I've got white sugar, same thing. That's all good. We need some salt. Got my salt. We're going to need some butter. Now, don't take that out of the fridge yet. If you're going to leave it into the fridge, because today is such a hot day, we need that butter to be really cold. So don't just leave it in the fridge for the moment. We'll get to that in a bit of time. If it's out of the fridge now, just go and pop it back so that it stays nice and cool. Excellent. You'll need some buttermilk. So buttermilk is something a little bit different than normal. It's sour and beautiful. We'll need some nutmeg. If you've got ground nutmeg or you've got the whole nutmeg cloves, I'm not sure what you call them. You'll need some pumpkin that you've already mashed. Has everybody mashed their pumpkin? Yep, great. And yeah, beautiful. Ruby, have you already mashed your pumpkin? Rubes? Yeah, great, fantastic. And we just need a little bit of extra buttermilk. Great. Now, in terms of equipment, you'll need a large bowl. Just grab my nice large bowl. You'll need measuring spoons and measuring cups, as always. You'll need a rolling pin. Yeah, bit of rolling pin. A pastry brush, great. Oh, I've got a frog in my throat. A chopping board, a baking tray. I've got my baking tray here with some baking paper. Optional. This is a really messy activity. So I've got my gloves ready, some disposable gloves for if you've got them at home. If you haven't, it's not a problem at all. But I just find scone dough is quite sticky, so I'm going to use my gloves and then just throw them away at the end. And the other thing, which I didn't put on the recipe, but everyone's got this, is you'll need a clean, dry tea towel at the end. So you don't need to worry about that now, but you will need a clean, dry tea towel because that's like a little bit of a grandma tip that I know to make sure that they don't go stale. Great. Are we ready? Fantastic. All right. And welcome to beautiful Kate and Taylor's friend. Excellent. Hi there. Great. Okay. First thing we're going to do is we're going to preheat the oven to 220 degrees. Now that is very hot for a hot day, but we're going to do 220 degrees. If you want to cook them later, you could you don't have to turn the oven on, but I'm going to cook mine straight in the session. So I'm going to put my oven on. I've got my fan going. I've got the air conditioner on, trying to keep it cool. And I've got a big drink of water. Excellent. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to line our baking tray with some baking paper. Or if you've got a silicone mat, you can do that. I'm just going to line my tray with some paper. Just, you'll only need one tray. I've just got that, fantastic. And then I'm just going to put it at the side because you don't need that immediately. Great. Give me a thumbs up once that's done. Great, excellent. Anna, I can see yours done. Ruby, done. All right. How you going? Yep, Taylor and Kate are in the middle of it. Then once you've done that, we're going to get our bowl ready. Pick that up. I just saw that as well. So, yes, you'll need a sieve or a sifter, whatever. Whatever. But now I've converted to the sieve. And as always, there's always a little thing on the recipe that we've missed out. So I'm going to write that on there. Sieve. Thank you, Ruby, for pointing that out. Great. Okay, so once you've done that, excellent. Taylor and Kate, you've got that done. All right, I'll just wait for you guys to catch up. Great. Once you've got your baking tray, move that out of the way, so that you've got your bowl and your sieve together there. Excellent. Okay, so what you need to do first is measure 2 cups of self-raising flour. 2 cups of self-raising flour. So I'm putting my cup straight down on the bench, my measuring cup, so I'm not waving it around trying to manage everything. And I'm pouring my flour straight into my cup. And then I'm giving it a tap on the bottom just to settle it, because I want to make sure that I've got a flat measure of flour. And we never measure straight over the bowl because that's how accidents happen. So I give it a little tap on the bottom and then I just put it straight into my sieve. And then we're going to just sieve that into the bowl. Fantastic. You've done your 2 cups of flour. Then you're going to put in 1 tablespoon of sugar. 1 tablespoon. Again, make sure it's a flat tablespoon. But it's better to put a heaped spoon and then shake off the extra rather than not having quite enough, because that will affect the flavour of your pumpkin scones. You want them to be sweet enough. Great. So 1 tablespoon of sugar. Great. 1 tablespoon of sugar, and then when I say a pinch of salt, I'm going to do 1 turn of my salt shaker. I would say you're wanting to use 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. 1/4 of a teaspoon. Right, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you're going to put in 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, I always use the whole nutmegs, and so I grind, or I grate, that's the word. I grate my nutmeg into the bowl. Because I just love nutmeg. And I want it to have that nice, strong flavour. So make sure you smell it. I love how, Ruby, that you're smelling the nutmeg. It's got a beautiful, beautiful flavour to, or smell to it. And it works really well with the pumpkin. And even when you cook pumpkin at home, you can sprinkle it with some nutmeg over the top. Beautiful. Great sneezing over there. All right. You guys all done that? Oh, yeah, Ruby's just doing that. Then you can get your butter out of the fridge next. And you're wanting to put 60 grams of butter straight into your mixture. Now, the recipe says cubed. The reason we do cubes is because it has more outside area, or it's called surface area, on the butter, and it means that we will be able to, absolutely perfect. I'm just measuring mine. 47, once you've got it. And if you've got any extra butter, put that butter back in the fridge. Right. So the reason that we cube it is because we want to be able to rub it in as quickly as possible. We don't want to keep, we want to reduce the amount of time. Now, once you've put it in, don't start yet, because I'm just going to tell you about this little process. So, I'll just make sure give me a thumbs up once you've got your butter into the flour. All right, as you guys do this, let me just tell you something about, it's called rubbing in. And rubbing in just means that you're literally going to rub the butter into the flour. Now, when you look at your hand, you've got your fingers and you've got your palm. Now, your fingers are much cooler than your palm because there's less blood going through them. We want to keep our butter as cool as possible, so we're only going to use the fingers, so that the fingers part of our hand. So what I'm going to do is, let me show you. I'm going to pick up 2 pieces of butter and I'm kind of giving them a squeeze, and then I drop them. So I pick it up, give it a drop, pick it up, give it a drop. And what we're wanting to do is do this until our mixture resembles breadcrumbs. So that's the way they describe it. So you keep doing it. And if there's a few of you doing it, sometimes I'll say only one person rub in or one person stir or whatever. But this time you can definitely do a couple of you rubbing in, because it will happen more quickly for you. So I'm just going to show you my hands. If you can see my hands, only my fingers, put them up right, only my fingers are covered in flour. So that's when we know that we're doing it the right way. So I'm just picking up lumps of butter, giving them a squeeze, like squeeze, and then I drop it. Then I pick up the next lot, squeeze it, and then I just go right to the bottom just to make sure that I've got big bits, right? And then we just It will take you 2 or 3 minutes to do this. Just picking up your butter and squeezing it. It's definitely not a summer activity, but who cares? Scones are yummy. We don't want to melt our butter. That's the outcome that we're after. We're wanting our butter to just become part of the flour. It's called incorporating. So I'll just show you my hands again. I've got a little bit on, but mainly on my fingers. So just keep doing it. You'll think that, oh my goodness, it's taking forever. But then all of a sudden, you'll see that you've only got like little bits and there's no big bits left. So I'm sort of like almost sprinkling my flour, just trying to find any of my big bits of butter. And I'm sort of tossing it at the same time. There is a really quick way to make scones that just involve lemonade, cream, and the flour. But I thought that it would be a good idea for us to learn how to do the traditional way, because then you've done it at least once. I grew up with my mum cooking scones all the time. It was one of her traditional recipes. And even now, she is a fantastic scone maker. And only until the last couple of years have I thought, oh, I might give this a go, because she was so good at it and her scones are always just gorgeous. I think mine are done now. Is anyone else's done? Taylor and Kate? Yep, great. Oh, excellent, great. How are you going, Rubes? Great, you're still going a bit. Yeah, excellent. That's okay. I'm just going to, let me just make sure. I'm going to wash my hands now. So if you want to go wash your hands. All right, nice clean hands. Okay, so while you guys are waiting, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out half a cup of buttermilk. Half a cup of buttermilk. So don't put it in yet. We're just measuring out half a cup of buttermilk. And then you can pop it back in the fridge once that's done. If you've never tasted buttermilk, why don't you? Because it's quite okay. It's not terrible. It's a little bit like yogurt in a way. It's got that sour sort of flavour to it. If you want to have a taste, now is a great taste to pour a spoon and just see if you like it. Anna's face. All right, great. So half a cup of buttermilk. Right, fantastic. And then we're going to measure 2/3 of a cup of your pumpkin. So 2/3 of a cup of pumpkin. The more that you put in, the stickier your scone dough will be. So don't overload it. I'm going to make pumpkin soup, I think, out of my leftover pumpkin. Great. Great. Excellent. Oh, look at all that beautiful pumpkin. Yum. Excellent. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to get a spatula or your wooden spoon and just make a well in the middle of your flour. Make a well in the middle of your flour. Yeah. Then, oh yeah, I'll just wait for Ruby, wait for you girls. Great. All right, make a well in the middle. Then you can pour your buttermilk straight in and your pumpkin mixture straight in. I'm just using my spatula just to get as much of that pumpkin out as possible. Yum, yum, yum. And then we're going to just stir our mixture together until it comes together. Now you should have a sticky dough. So just, I'm turning my bowl at the same time as I'm stirring it. And I'm scraping the side of my spatula just so that it can absorb a little bit more. We're not beating it, we're just really sort of folding it all in together until it becomes like a sticky dough. And I think mine is just about there now. So it's nice and great. So my dough is, I'll just bring it up to the camera a bit. It's sort of, it's a soft dough. It's not smooth at all. It's just a, it's a bit sticky. Great. Girls, are you using a wooden spoon, Taylor and Kate and Co? Yeah, look at you go. Love it. I love it that you knew what to do. Don't overbeat it, because if you overbeat it, remember that the gluten in the flour will start to connect its little chains and it will get tougher. We don't want to overbeat our mixture. We just want it to come together. Make sure that you get your spatula right at the bottom of your mixture. Oh, yum. I can see the buttermilk working on the dough. All right. Don't overmix it. So we'll stop right there. Now there are two ways we can do this. I'm going to just watch what I do, because as I say, there are two ways that you can do it. I'm going to get my dough and I'm going to sprinkle some flour onto my baking tray. And this is to create just a little barrier so that it doesn't stick on the bottom. So I'm going to put all of my mixture onto my board, and I'm going to get some flour onto my hands. So we're flouring our hands. I'm just doing that, because you can see that it's really quite sticky. So, and I'm sprinkling the top of my dough as well. So put it onto your board. You've got some flour at the bottom and flour on your hands and flour underneath. Right, so flour on the bottom of your board. Then you put your dough, then you sprinkle flour on top of your dough. So you can see that I've got just a sprinkling of flour on my dough, and that's so that I can handle it without getting too sticky. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you two ways. So I'm just going to pat my flour down, my dough down. So you could use a little rolling pin if you wanted to, but to be honest with you, you can just flatten it down and make it into a bit of a like a square shape. You sort of have to move it around a little bit to pressing it down. And again, we don't want to handle our dough too much. The more that we handle it, the tougher our scones will be. Okay, now, if you just want to make it like that and then cut segmented bits into your dough with a knife, that's one way of doing it. Or if you want to use a cutter to create nice round shaped scones, you can do that as well. So if you've got a cutter and you want to do that, I just find this is less messy because, so that's still nice and close to it. And that one there looks a bit dodgy, so I'm going to neaten up my corner. Great. All right, so whenever you want to start, just go for it. If you want to do the cutter, let me find a little cutter. The trick with the scones is putting them nice and close together, and that's why I do them in one big, lump, because I find that it just works a bit better that way. Someone's, yeah, Ruby, just letting you know that you've got your, you're not muted. Again, we're handling them as less as possible. So like you can make little round shapes with a cutter if you want to do it that way. So making sure that if you're using a cutter, that you're dusting it with flour. So I'm going to do a lot of a funny shaped one there. If you want to have a look at your oven and just see if it's got to the right temperature with the light turning off, you could have a just check your oven now. When I made them the other day, we didn't put flour on the bottom of the board, and I found that they sort of stuck to the baking paper a bit. So this time we're putting our flour underneath it, and that just makes it a little bit more movable at the cooking end. Now, usually we have scones with jam and cream, but with pumpkin scones, you could still do jam and cream, most definitely. You could just do butter if you wanted to, or you could put Nutella on top. That might be nice. All right, once you've got to that stage, and there's no rush, of course, is then I'm getting my pastry brush and I'm just getting a little bit of buttermilk and painting the top of my scones with some more buttermilk. So they always go in that really, really hot oven because they cook quite quickly. If you don't have buttermilk, if you didn't have any more buttermilk, you could use just plain regular full cream milk, because that's going to give it a nice golden crust. So you don't want them soggy, just enough to, so Daisy, just enough to get golden when they cook, because they only cook for 12 to 15 minutes. So they don't need to be in the oven for very long, because we want the outside to be crusty, crusty, and we want the inside to be fluffy. So if you've got a little bit of leftover dough from your round cutters, you can just very easily push it back together and then just use the dough up. Great. Beautiful. So the trick is, I'll just say it again, is to make sure that your scones are definitely touching. So They need to be nice and close. I'm just going to move my little wayward one just a bit closer. This is a beautiful dough. I'm so happy with it. And I'm just making mine to be just a little bit more apart. Because we don't want the outside to cook and the inside to be raw. Right, and I can see that the cultures in the yogurt are causing it to kind of bubble up a little bit, almost like a little yeast. So now when you go to put your scone tray in the oven, even though your scone tray is cool now, your oven is super, super hot. So instead of what we normally put the oven on for 180 degrees, today we've got it on 220. So it's super hot. So when you open your oven up, I want you to stand back just so that you get a little bit of that sort of blast of hot air to go up into the air. My goodness. So, and we need to use oven mitts. Even when you're putting it in, I want you to use oven mitts and just slowly let that oven door open, let some of the hot air out, then you can slide your tray in. Great. Excellent. And as always, if it says 12 to 15 minutes, put your timer on for 10 minutes just so you can check your scones. You may need to swirl your tray around at the 10-minute mark, just in case one side of your oven cooks more than the other side. Great. So I'm going to put my tray into the oven now. I'm just letting it open up. And I'm putting it straight into the oven using my oven mitts.